The save he made on Sunday night at the buzzer.
Yeah, that was nuts. That was nuts. What entails Savasa? Like, what is
In through the nose, out through the mouth. Lay down on your back, uh, palms
Why
up.
don't you do more of that?
That save by Schaefer might have been his most least impressive save of the game. The shooter kind of faked himself out and hit him in the helmet. But I will say Sam made, I don't know, 5 to 10 A-plus saves in that game, especially in the fourth quarter when Loyola's defense was falling apart.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think when you play that well, you deserve the lucky save, right? Like that's the payoff, because he was incredible in the fourth quarter. My attention goes to Alex Simmons too. Like I see him on the ground, head down, and there's that feeling of joy for Loyola. And I don't know, like the competitor in me and having some compassion as I get older, I look at Alex Simmons, I see him on the ground and I see him so upset. And he's an unbelievable stick handler, and he hits that shot 9 out of 10 times, and it just didn't go his way. But that's something that I think Schaefer's going to want to have a picture on his wall, and he could tell his grandkids about it. But at the end of the day, in actuality, it wasn't that great of a save because it hit him in the shoulder. But you know better as a goalie, Quint. If you're positioned right, you deserve that.
In that spot, making the save, given the stakes, and that Denver had all the momentum. And I think we can all say if Denver scores that goal, they probably win the game in overtime. They were winning every faceoff. They had all the momentum. You can quibble with, was it his best save of the night or not? No, it wasn't. But given the magnitude of the moment, it's one of the more memorable saves in the history of this tournament. And honestly, it plays on a bigger theme from round one. There's so much chatter, face-offs. 4 of the 8 teams that won faced off at 50% or lower. 7 of the 8 teams that won got elite goalie play. And goalies have been a big theme here. We saw it in the Loyola game. The only goalie under 50% in round one was McNaney at Maryland. Didn't really face that many shots, and that game had a different flow, and Maryland was never in trouble. But goalies, to me, were the story of round one.
I think that's the impact of the shot clock. The best goalie I saw in round one was Colin Kirst of Rutgers. It was quite a day for the Kirst family. Clark, you covered that game. What was your biggest takeaway?
It was amazing. I mean, I think my attention kind of always went back within the game and then to the mom, Michelle, who's an unbelievable woman. And I got to speak to her a couple of times last week, and she's funny and she's caring. She's everything you want in a mom who has 5 boys. Like, she gets the boys, right? So seeing 3 of them on the field at the same time, and the storylines within the 3 boys and the 2 teams. Colin Kirst, the goalie, who you think is as good as any goalie in the country, he was Lehigh's backup last year. He's playing for Rutgers against Lehigh, and his brother is shooting on him, who was a teammate last year. And now his new teammate is his other brother, who was at Villanova last year. So, like, all of those pieces to the puzzle were unbelievable. And capturing moments in sports, to me, is super, super powerful. And seeing her expressions and, like, being torn, like, you saw her kind of being happy in one respect, but, like, thinking that she might be worried about the other boy, like, right? Like, one boy shoots on the other, he makes a save, Rutgers goes the other way. Like, where's her attention? So I thought it was unbelievable. But I think, Anish, you bring up the point about faceoffs and goaltending. You have to find possessions somewhere if you're getting dominated at the dot. And Michael Sisselberger statistically is the best in the country. And when I spoke to Brian Brecht this past week and leading up into that game, he wasn't overly concerned about faceoffs. He just felt like he had to have great goaltending, which he's had most of the season. And they had to find possessions in the middle of the field. They were really good in the clear game. They rode well, and they buckled down on defense too. So it's not the defining factor in all of these games.
To segue from Rutgers to their next opponent, UNC, one thing I'm looking forward to, maybe we get a conversation at some point between Justin Anderson and Adam Sharalambitas, a couple of 25-year-olds, maybe talking about, mortgage rates, refinancing,
starting
daycare
a 403B.
for at least one of them, right? Yeah, it's just grown men, grown men talking about their portfolios. But Anderson, you mentioned a family moment. His wife Priscilla gives birth on Friday to their daughter Scarlett June. Saturday, first game of the NCAA tournament, UNC Monmouth. Anderson scores the first goal. Is there any better way to say happy birthday to your newborn daughter?
No. And he didn't sleep those last couple days, and the emotion.
The daddy
right?
dopamine, man. You got that daddy dopamine flowing.
Yeah, you got that C4 or whatever you're drinking. He was probably pre-gaming with that. No, it was an amazing moment. And, we've covered Justin for a while. And when you speak to his teammates, and I've had a chance to sit down with him and do a piece on him, he's beyond mature too. Like, I feel like I'm the immature one when I'm talking to him, and I'm 20 years older than him.
Well, we are glad to have you. We have Michelle Kirst, the mom of Cole, Colin, Connor, CJ, and Caden. So
yeah.
The ultimate lacrosse mom. And
No.
you're in New Jersey. So I meant that in a good way. You're in New Jersey. So you're in a car, which I grew up in New Jersey. So I know what that's like. Spend a lot of time in the car. So we thank you for coming on. You were kind of the TV star of the weekend, where you were all over everybody's screen, and I'm sure a lot of different emotions running through you. So just, with that game being played with Rutgers and Lehigh and 3 boys and 2 with you in the stands, just describe what Saturday was like.
Really, it was fun. It started out fun. Then I was a bit nervous, but it was really fun. It was hard, to be honest, to not have seen the boys before the game. But in the end, I know they were looking forward to it so much. Colin was so excited. It was the first time he was going to see his Lehigh buds. And he was eager to see them. And it was just in warm-ups when he was able to kind of say hello and catch and connect with them. But it was great. My father-in-law came up from Florida, and my sister-in-law came out from New York. It was fun to have everyone together, and a beautiful day.
Michelle, when I was in high school, I lost my mom, and I know there are moments in life, and certainly there have been moments in my life where you feel like, okay, somebody has put all of this together for you, and you know who that person is, and there's a presence there. And with your husband Kyle and their father, whose spirit and aura was over that game, what did you feel in that regards? Like, this is one way that he's kind of brought our family together.
It was a bit overwhelming. In high school, the boys had matchups before, and they also competed against their dad. But I could hear him loud and clear. Ground balls win championships, boys. Get out there. No sidearm shots. I could just tell you some of the things that I was just hearing, and and I could see the boys smiling under their helmets too, which was really fun. And everybody was really just, I think it was about the game, right? Like, it was definitely competitive, but it had a great spirit.
Michelle, so many people that have their kids involved in lacrosse, the dream is to become a Division I lacrosse player. And all of your boys to this point who have had that opportunity are fulfilling their dreams. So take me back to when they were younger. Like, what was it about this game that fueled them and that found love?
So the boys grew up playing at all the sports, and it got to the point, and they were definitely engaged in all of them. But it became a point in time when they were playing baseball that they had to make a final decision, right? So I think it was the speed of the game, really, and the contact, certainly. And I think Dad had some influence too. I don't think they knew anything else. Instead of a pacifier, I think they all got little sticks when they came home. Certainly. Yeah, I think it was just the camaraderie. I think a lot of the influence of our friends from Rutgers and my husband's friends and our closeness just kept lacrosse really in the forefront.
You mentioned the contact of the game. And when I think of contact, I think of your boys like they're 6'3" and 210 and 230. And they're these big hulk of guys right now. Like, take me back throughout the process, like when they're all home now. And I mentioned on the air on Saturday in the game, like you went through 16 gallons of milk a week in the height of it all. Like, what was it like in the kitchen, in the laundry room, dealing with all these massive young boys?
It was great. Well, they honestly, it during COVID especially, there were a lot of mini stick tournaments, lots of eggs, lots of bacon, and bonfires, and it was great to see them all together and just like little ones running around in the backyard. They were they kept the traditions alive. But it's great white noise for me to hear all that. Every now and then I got to break out the whistle and kind of break them up, but it's all I know, to be honest.
Michelle, when they were young and playing in the backyard, who's most likely to break a window, or who's most likely to throw the first punch? Who's most likely to get the black eye or come back in the house crying?
They've all had their moments, I'll say, but it's funny that you ask on the windows. I thought to date my record was pretty good, that we only had one broken window. But I learned, I guess it was Friday, I got a nice friendly text from an old neighbor who admitted that the boys broke two windows and covered it up. So, and we've got one on the east and one on the west. So 3 total broken windows in my time. Not so bad. No broken arms, maybe bruises, but and I will say broken sticks for sure.
What is my line?
Nobody
It was good. I
remembers.
forgot.
Oh, nobody. I was going to say
Loser.
quarterfinal losers.
Yeah, that's the drinking game. Every time Quinn says nobody remembers a quarterfinal loser.
Nobody remembers a quarterfinal loser. No, the quarterfinal round, I always found to be the most stressful because you win, you get to advance to championship weekend, all the features and benefits, the dream of the championship stays alive. You lose and your season's done a weekend too early. And we've got 4 matchups, 2 sites, Hofstra and then Notre Dame, Saturday, Sunday, all games on ESPNU. Carolina, Rutgers. I thought the Scarlet Knights looked really sharp last week. I thought they bounced back from that loss to Hopkins in the Big Ten semifinals. They'll be underdogs against Carolina, but I think their attack is going to give the heel some issues.
It's an older team. Veterans like Connor Kirst, Adam Sherlambita's on attack, and defensively, I do think they'll struggle against UNC. What they have going for them is their last line of defense. Some of the saves that Colin Kirst made, and Kark, you did that game. Quint, I know you love him. You think he's elite. He stole some goals in that Lehigh game. He changed momentum. Carolina's got an offense, and we've talked to opposing coaches. They'll sting corners, and they'll put balls in places where the goalies have no shot. Guys like Perry and Anderson from the outside. Gray can get inside. Tanner Cook is this great switchblade. Cameron Kelly. They have so many guys and so many weapons. The depth of Carolina in the middle of the field, I think, is a huge advantage. Connor Marr, Matt Wright, and then the faceoffs. It's not just Andrew Tyre and Zach Tucci. It's not just that these are above average, very good elite faceoff guys. They generate offense. They win, they're going. And the most impressive part about Carolina, how fast they play, how in sync they are, and how mistake-free they are. Carolina doesn't turn it over for a team that plays a lot of possessions and a team that plays in this almost chaotic environment at times.
Yeah.
The other game, Clark, I want to ask you about that you're covering, Georgetown, Virginia. The Cavs were coming off a 21-day layoff. And if you just take last week's performances, Georgetown will beat Virginia based on what we saw last week. Is that the real Virginia team, or you think we'll see a better addition?
You know, the real Virginia team to me is still a puzzle. I don't know who the real Virginia team is. I've seen them blown out by Syracuse. I've seen them lose to Syracuse for a second time. I've seen Syracuse able to defend Virginia, and it's the only team in the ACC they were able to defend. What scares me, if you're a Virginia fan, about this Georgetown matchup is Virginia actually has dudes that can cover. They're not an easy team to beat one-on-one. They've struggled at times in the invert, but off ball, there are opportunities. And I look at Georgetown offensively, and Mike Phipps, their offensive coordinator, puts those guys in really good spots. They move the ball extremely well. They have an elite feeder in TJ Haley, who has the most assists in the country. And then he's surrounded by some snipers, guys like Caraway and Declan McDermott and, Graham Bundy Jr. All these guys could shoot. You talk about Carolina's shooters. I mean, Georgetown's got real legit shooters. So I think the strength of the Georgetown offense is actually the weakness of the Virginia defense. So I think Georgetown should be favored in this game. I really do. Now, Virginia has pieces, and Virginia has guys that every coach in America would want on their team. But I haven't seen them consistently share the ball outside of really Moore and Schellenberger, who play that two-pronged quarterback approach. The ball doesn't move and spin like it does for some of these other elite offenses. So if I was to think one team was favored over the other, I mean, obviously Virginia has the talent to go in and win this game, and I expect Petey LaSalle to rebound. But I think Georgetown has the more balanced team that is playing more consistent team ball, and they're scary right now.
Anish, what's the
The
biggest
impact
question?
here? What's the impact here, though, of pedigree, Kirk?
I don't think it matters.
No, not
No?
until this round. Not until championship weekend.
Yeah, I don't think it matters.
Quarterfinal games don't have the same buildup, the same hoopla, the same media responsibilities, the same. It's first time teams at championship weekend historically don't perform well because they're not used to the Friday. And this year it'll be different with the less in-person media stuff going on.
What's the difference for Jake Caraway in Georgetown? They go down to Syracuse, who's traditionally a rich program that has that mystique around them. They travel to College Park, a neutral site, and smack Syracuse around. Why can't they go up to Hofstra and play with Virginia?
Anish, take me to Las Vegas. What's the line and total goals for Maryland Notre Dame?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say I would set the over-under at 22.5.
Oh my gosh, that was the number exactly in my head. That was the
22.5.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would say Maryland is half goal, 1 goal favorite. I think Maryland matches up really well against Notre Dame. Listen, it's a toss-up in my book. What I like about Maryland is in Bernhardt, Wisnauskas, and Kyle Long, you have 3 very good passers. And what Notre Dame forces you to do is make the high-risk passes to get to that soft spot in the interior of their defense. Now, if you mess up and that ball hits the carpet, or Cone, Keelty, Boyer, Thornton get their stick on it, those middies can go. Hallenbeck can score. Harris can score. Cassidy can score in transition. They can create for their attack very easily. But Maryland has the guys to make those passes. And, if Jack Keelty was going to be on Jared Bernhardt the entire game, maybe we look at it a little differently. But Notre Dame is not a matchup-oriented defense. They play their system, and they'll work with their rotations, and they'll slide and help. And
they switch on picks, too. They don't care. They switch
They
on
don't
picks.
care. They don't care. So there's going to be some opportunities there for Maryland. But, on the flip side, what has Maryland seen defensively that even compares a little bit, Quint, to Notre Dame? Nothing.
I mean, that'll be the question mark to me is there's some vulnerability inside against Notre Dame's defense. We've seen that at times this season. Notre Dame's cleared the ball poorly, especially late in games. Maryland doesn't really ride. Face-offs would favor Notre Dame. Goaltending even. John Tillman will have his team ready. I think they'll have a chip as the higher seed going into the Hornets' nest, having to travel on a shorter day's preparation. So that'll be
Home
interesting.
field.
That's a
Home field will
hard,
matter.
that's a hard over under, if you ask me. 22 and a hook. I'm thinking like under, over, like that's a really hard over.
Well, it's supposed to be. That means we got it.
I know. It's really well done on that. Well done on that. I couldn't have picked a better one. It's the something of the week presented by our friends at Lax.com. Are your shoulder pads and your goalie chest pads ready for the new safety standards? Lax.com is the largest selection of pads that meet the new NOXI ND200 standard and are SEI certified. To see all the new shoulder pads, visit lax.com/shoulder pads. Quint, what is your something of the week?
My something of the week is Jared Bernhardt after Sunday's Maryland win in the first round, and visuals of him signing autographs and lingering in the stadium long after that game ended. I go back to a young man from Orlando whose older brothers, Jesse and Jake, played for the Terps. He's been going to games there for, more than a decade right now. And, having lost his dad in 2019, I think there was a sentimentality of the moment where the rest of the team was in the locker room. He was the last one on the field. There was a pack of kids, and he went out of his way with a Sharpie to sign those autographs. I think he looked up there and said, I was that kid once. This moment is important, but I also think that he was hesitant to leave the field because that is a place that goes back a dozen years for him as a special place. And to say goodbye sometimes is really difficult. And I felt that in the moment. I thought he was being a great student athlete and giving his time to the kids, to that next generation. But I also saw that it kind of hurt him to walk off the field.
My something of the week is saying thank you. One of the overarching themes from our coaches' calls last week was just gratitude that we're here, we have a chance to play. And I think sometimes as fans, as us in the media, we're calling these games, what's at stake, who's going to win, what does it mean for this team, and where does it put the program? Just have to take a step back. John Tillman said it best to us a few times. We figured out how to play lacrosse during a pandemic. I talked to Kevin Corrigan Monday on Packer and Durham on the ACC network. And, I said, what was the most rewarding part of this journey? And he said, everywhere you go to the grocery store, you got to put a mask on. Every part of your life is different. So much has changed. You can't see friends. You're stuck in your house. What was normal was meeting with your team and practicing and playing lacrosse. It was its own little bubble in a lot of ways, but it was also this silo of normalcy for so many. And we got to get to this point. Was it completely linear? No. Was it uneven at times? Yes. Bumpy? Yes. But we've made it this far. It's further than we got last year, and we're a few weeks away from seeing it to the end.
My something of the week is props to the underdogs. And I'm speaking about Drexel and I'm speaking about Bryant. I first want to say this. We've covered a ton of ACC games this year, and the level of play was incredible. The Thursday night games, the Saturday matinees, awesome lacrosse. I don't back down for 1 second saying that the ACC was magnificent. I can also say that the ACC was magnificent and also give props to teams like Drexel and Bryant. I think a lot of people spent this weekend and allowed the whole notion of there's more lacrosse outside of the ACC, and they let it consume them. Well, there is more life outside of the ACC, and this weekend was a direct reflection of that. And the Drexel Dragons, behind incredible play by their goaltender, Ross Blumenthal, showed the world that they do belong. And the Bryant Bulldogs, behind heroic efforts by players like Logan McGovern, showed that they belong. And as someone who covers the sport and someone who loves the sport, I can tell you in the same sentence that I love the ACC and the level of play was incredible. And I welcomed the performances by the Drexel Dragons and the Bryant Bulldogs, and it was great for the sport of lacrosse.
All right, first question, we're going to kick this at a niche. Watch the Blacks Bros brought this back up. He said, the people don't forget. And it's a picture of you with your long hair and a tweet talking about you cutting off your hair for charity. So I'll open up the floor. What are your plans here, Anish?
Yeah, first of all, you got to love Lax Twitter, right? Internet troll accounts from people who can't put their real names in front of stuff. But he does have a point. We brought it up. Kark and I have talked about this for months, and a couple of weeks ago, we reached out to One Love, the foundation that has a crusade against domestic abuse, domestic violence. It started with Yardley Love losing her life more than a decade ago. And so the goal is championship weekend. Kark is going to cut my hair, and we're going to get people to raise money. We hope the lacrosse community can join in. It's a good cause. And whatever you would put toward a haircut, or part of what you would put toward a haircut, if you can chip in, all of it's going to go to One Love. We'll tweet out from their website. They've got like a rollout where you can just go on their page, click donate. There'll be an option to text. Whatever you can give, we would appreciate it. And, we thought long and hard, Paul, about what charity we wanted to use, and this one felt right.
It did. It felt definitely right. I'm going to miss the long locks. Not going to lie to you. It added a little bit of a different dimension to your professor type verbiage. But in any event, I'm going to give you a really good haircut, and we're going to do it for all the right reasons.
You guys got to do it on Sunday of championship weekend at an outdoor pub-ish outdoor environment, so the fans can actually be there in person. We'll zoom it out. We'll film it on our phones, and everybody will get to watch live. And we'll have a local audience as well.
I think Anish just left. Maybe he's having second guess of me giving him a haircut or whatever, but hopefully he'll return. If not, too bad.
Well, we'll miss Anish for the rest of this segment, but we'll move on with some more questions here. I'll kick this one to you, Kark. This one's from @JMW4, and they ask, can Georgetown win it all?
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, I think it'd be foolish to think otherwise. When you look at Georgetown, I actually think Georgetown and Notre Dame are the two most balanced teams in the country in terms of like checking all the boxes, right? Quarterback at attack, outside shooters and dodgers on the offense, midfielders that can go both ways. A guy like Dylan Hess checks that box for Georgetown. Defensively, I mean, Quint did their game last week. They're aggressive. Kevin Warren's forte all these years has been defense. They clear the ball really well. James Riley at the faceoff dot has been above average and has shown that he could beat big-time faceoff specialists like TD Erlin and Alex Stathakis. And then they have Owen McElroy in the goal. So, like, tell me where the weakness is. Of course they could win. And they have leadership at the senior type level that propels you to championship weekend. And that would be a player like Jake Caraway, who's a Tewaaraton finalist and shoots the lights out of the ball. So for me, yes, I actually think they're in a position where they will certainly contend for a national championship.
Wouldn't hate seeing Jay Caraway Sellies for another 2 weekends. So Georgetown, yeah, it's got a shot. Kicking this one to Quint. This one's from @John_Tory_. And this is your favorite type of question. He asked, best goalie left in the quarterfinals.
Raise your hand if you know of a goalie, a good goalie who played in front of a great defense, whose performances maybe were, exclamated by that group. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you know a shooter who maybe benefited from having great parts around him. There we go. So when we're gauging goalies, it's really important to really look at like the quality of shots. Okay. So the numbers don't always tell the whole story. This goalie group from top to bottom, I think, is one of the stronger we've seen in recent years. And it's helpful. The shot clock is really fed into their excellence. Teams have to shoot late in the shot clock. And the better your defense is, theoretically, the lower quality the shot is. So numbers don't tell the full story. My eyes tell me that Colin Kirst, and I've watched him all season long, might be the most talented goalie in the country. Okay. I think he is. He got little support during the regular season, to the point where I was really amazed at the quality of stops he was making compared to some others who have better numbers, weren't seeing the same quality of shots. His clearing is first class. His clearing is elite. His poise, his leadership, his body language. I've never seen him flinch this season. You go back, this is a young man who lost his dad. Like, giving up a goal is very relative. I know where he's at mentally. Like, when you hurt that bad off the field and someone scores a goal on you, it's kind of like no big deal. So for my money, for one game, Colin Kirst, the guy I want between the pipes.
I love that, Quint. And I think you're absolutely positively right. And you make a great point. And I'm thinking, like, what would I have been without Casey Powell and Rob Kavovich? Not that good.
Well, we're on episode, I think, 8 of Yard Sale. And Quint, that was your best mailbag answer of all time. So
Well, I like Mailbag. You just got to give me a decent question.